Good morning and welcome to our live program. This is Lloyd Gravier, your host on Revive Reform Radio, during our live talk program covering the importance of church or church matters on this your Tuesday morning Rise and Shine. And this morning here we're looking at a topic: avoid maintaining one-sided ideology, liberal or conservative. So avoid maintaining one-sided ideology, liberal or conservative. So welcome again to our live talk program. Hopefully you had a blessed night rest and you're ready to take on today and also to take opportunities that lie in your midst. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you for the blessings of this day, for life, for strength of mind and body. And I pray, the Lord, you may bless us as we look into these things that are happening in our society and also in our church. May you bless us, dear Lord, that we might live and not die. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So I'm looking here at this simple thought: avoid maintaining one-sided ideology, liberal or conservative. And I think it's a statement I've heard. I don't think I've read it from his books, but Martin Luther, the famous reformer back in the Dark Ages, and he said something towards, is purported that he said that, Christians are like drunken horsemen. Christians are like drunken horsemen. And they're going to fall off on one side or the other, but you just don't know when they start riding. So, a person comes in the church, they get baptized, and they gun out for Jesus. And then they start riding like a drunken horseman. And they're going to fall off. You just don't know, he says, what side. Are they going to go liberal or are they going to go conservative? And this is why you have to try. Now, we all are sinners and we are subject to failure. Failure sometimes that we can't see. Somebody sees something inside of us and we don't see inside of ourselves. It's hard to judge yourself because you don't watch yourself. I always say my eyes look out, they don't look back in. Unless I get a mirror or somebody reflects something back at me, I sometimes don't see myself. So even as I do this presentation, I'm always mindful that oftentimes when I see the mirror, it sometimes is disturbing. But one thing I know for certain is that it's important for us to, whether or not somebody shines a mirror on us, to make an effort to be in the middle or to be independent of the left or the right, the conservative or the liberal. It's very important because when we do this, we actually protect ourselves from making an effort to maintain one side or the other, because then we become blind to not only nuances, but we become blind to sometimes it's neither. Sometimes it's neither. It's neither left or right. It's either conservative or liberal. And that's the problem with maintaining. Where you get up every day, and I notice people who are the ones that maintain each ideology, very liberal or very conservative in their outlook. They're so unbalanced because they will, as Christ says, they'll swallow camel, but they'll choke at a knot. A small little thing will trip them up, and the big thing they just swallow it down because they're liberal or they're conservative, and they can't see the mess that they're creating because they hold to one side or the other. And so avoid extremes is our theme for this week. I'm looking at is avoid extremes, maintain balance. So that's our theme, how to maintain that balance and not to go to extreme. And as I say, if you hold to a liberal ideology, you're an extremist, you're ridiculous. And if you hold to a conservative ideology, you're extremist and you're ridiculous, because everything has to be fit into that mold, and you can't see outside of that mold. And your mind now has become molded to see life always from that point of view, no matter how wicked or evil that point of view is, as long as you see it from that mold. So it's problematic. So again, the main premise is life is better lived in the middle. So when disruptions comes or demands come, you can handle it. So when you're in the middle, You're not at the top, you're not at the bottom, you're not left, right, you're in the middle. It's easy to go back and forth. And as I say, so many issues in life, you have to test the issue by issue. I realized this, that you could have a church and it seems liberal, but it's actually very conservative. You could have a church that seems conservative and it's actually liberal. You could have a person that seems one way, but they are the other way, or they're neither. It depends on the issue. I can go liberal or conservative based upon the issue. What is the issue? I'll deal with the issue one issue at a time. But when individuals say, no, I'm always conservative, I'm always with the conservative, and I say, you don't see what they're doing? And then somebody come over here and say, I'm always with the liberals, and I say, you don't see what they're doing? I'm like, nope, I can't see what they're doing because I'm liberal in my ideology. And if they do something that causes people to die left, right, and center, I'm with them because that's my stance. It's a ridiculous stance, and it's a scary stance. So again, my theme for the week is avoid extremes and maintain balance. Life is better lived in the middle. So when disruptions come or demand come, you can handle it. Things sometimes come that trip up the basic different ideology. So again, my topic is avoid maintaining one-sided ideology, liberal or conservative. It's important. Just avoid this. The better you do at avoiding this, then, as I say, if you have to push to one way or push to the other way, it makes it easier. But when you hold to one, then you'll hurt the other. Notice here in Matthew chapter 7, verse 3 through 6. Matthew 7, verse 3 through 6. After Christ says we must be careful of not judging others, it says, why beholdest the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but consider it not the beam that is in thine eye? In other words, Christ is asking this question when you start to become judgmental of others. And that's why I said this is always a very touchy thing when we talk about these extremes, because we could be extreme. I could be extreme in my views and not realize this. But yet he says here we must be careful that we first look at the beam in my eye. The beam in the eye, I do not believe, is because of perspective. In other words, the closer something is to your eye, the larger it seems. But I really believe that often what it is that sometimes we could be, raining on somebody else's parade. Literally, it could be a gay parade, and we could be raining on their parade, but we're not seeing that we have problems that are huge, larger than their parade. It doesn't mean that they're right. It just means that we might probably be collecting more bodies than them, and vice versa. I could be looking at these people over here and say, hey, look, they're they're warmongers. They're always doing jingoism, but yet spreading AIDS all over the society. So Christ said, no, look at your problem and take out the beam out of your eye, this big old plank that is in your eye that you can't see. Now verse 4 says, or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. And then he says later on now, he says next verse 6 says, give not that which is holy unto dogs, neither cast out your pearls, but cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. So as you know, you've experienced a lot of pigs in your life, and I do experience them in my life. If you put pearl before them, they not only trample the pearl, they don't have no value for it, the pearls of truth. That's what Christ is talking about here. But also they turn around and they attack you and they rend you, they'll damage you. And I've had that experience, you have had that experience, we all have all experienced that. So this is kind of a tricky. First he said don't judge. Then he says you must pick the beam out of your eye. Then when you see clearly, you pick the beam out of your brother's eye. But he also warns you, be careful if you're even trying to pick beams or mote out of people's eyes, because you have to know who you're picking the beam out of their eyes, because you'll go out and say, hey, here's some truth here, this could help you, and the person turn around and trample the truth that you're giving them and then rend you. So these texts from verse 1 through 6 is a experience why Christ, I believe, is God. This is why this is inspired, because it's certainly a back and forth, and you have to be balanced to be able to understand what's going on here, because verse 1 and 2 could seem to go one way, but by the time he come to verse 6, boom, it's a major problem here, because he comes to verse 6 and he says, yeah, help people, get the beam out of your eye, then help them out the mouth, but some people need to leave the mouth in their eyes because they're pigs and they'll tramp you. And that's what's difficult about this type of discussion, because when we're talking about ideology and we talk about maintaining balance, when you deal with an individual that is lean, extremely liberal or extremely conservative, most of the time they can be pigs. They'll attack you, and they can't see that their point of view is so extreme. And then they'll ask, is something wrong with what I'm saying? And the problem is not that they're wrong. Notice here, Christ didn't say that the brother didn't have something in the eye. Christ was just saying one person have more than the other. And that's what it is when we're sinners down here trying to do the right thing and help each other. It is so difficult because, we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory. We all have shortcomings. And so technically there's a point where if you follow some of this teaching, you could come to a point where you just leave people alone. Because you know what happened? I have problems, you have problems, man. You die in your blood and I die in my blood. We're just drowning each of our blood. We wallow in our mess. Yet Christ says, no, you ought to help your brother out. So how? Christ says, first pick the beam out of your eye, then go help your brother. But Christ says also you have to be careful, because there's people who not gonna help. You're not gonna help them. They're pigs. So somewhere in there's a balance, and you have to figure it out. You are supposed to be your brother's keeper, but some of your brothers are pigs. Difficult to deal with. So this is why you have to pick and choose. You have to figure out who you deal with, because as I say, some people, it's a blessing. You pick the beam out of your eye. Imagine if I come to you and I say, man, I'm trying to. They say the thing too, I believe. I've learned when people are asking me questions, I'm not giving them answers, because what it is, say somebody come to you and you're into exercise, and I come to you and say, man, I'm into help, but my fitness game is not right, and your fitness game is right, man. Can you help me out? You help me out, and I appreciate it. But sometimes you can see a person and their fitness game is not right, and you go try to help them and they attack you. So I've learned many times, one of the ways, I'm just giving you this as a side note, one of the ways is you try to just find people who want the information. Don't push the information on people, because they'll attack you. So anyhow, I'll go to an article and then I'll come back to my main point. The article is not my main point. The article is an illustration of left-right and the left-right debate that's going on in our society. So as you know, in our society, we have a left-right debate. Our society and church, always in a history of humanity, there's always the Sadducees and the Pharisees. The Sadducees represent the liberal, the Pharisees represent the conservative. Both of them were not friends with Jesus. So Jesus was not left or was not right. And most people don't know that. Most people believe Christ was either liberal or was conservative. But if you look at Christ, you realize it depends on what you're dealing with. And I say we're trying to be like Jesus. Jesus, take it issue by issue. And that's what we strive for. Or at least that's how I understand it. Somebody could redefine it for me. And if you're good, I'll accept it. But that's how I understand Christ. Christ wasn't liberal, and Christ wasn't a conservative. The people who murdered Christ in the end was literally the conservatives. And as long as you understand that, you understand where this is all going to end. The conservatives are the dangerous ones to a certain degree. Liberals, they're no difference. They're trying to give you AIDS or some of this STD. So, but they're both dangerous. But they're dangerous in different ways. You get what I'm saying? So you got to watch that. So it's the same thing. So I can't be with the Pharisees and I can't be with the Sadducees. Somebody said, well, you can go to the praise and worship church. I can't go there. Even if they're more line up with me on certain issues, but on a lot of issues I can't. They long time have abandoned the Bible, and it's just fun and games. And I go over to the conservative, I can't go over there. They're crazy. There's people into war and oppressing their fellow human beings. So it's just this problem that we have. But I used to think I always knew you should never join either side. But you were forced, because almost all churches split down the line of conservative and liberal. So what do you do? I guess you end up like me. I just couldn't join either. Both of them were repulsive. Now, in this article is taken from Christian Post, and it is talking about an article that was an interview that they did later on and the result of the interview. So it's entitled Mike Huckabee responds to hateful bigot accusation, and quote, I refuse to deny God's law. So this is written by Leah Marianne Klett. So into the article now. Despite being dubbed a hateful bigot and mean-spirited conservative by left-leaning websites, Mike Huckabee has said he will not apologize for identifying the redefining of gender and sexual identity as the greatest threat to the moral fiber of America. So it's very important. So hopefully you get that. So Michael Bay said this is the greatest threat to the moral fiber of America. On Saturday, Mike Huckabee took a moment on his TV political commentary program and TBN to address the backlash he experienced following the interview with the Christian Post. Quote, I need to warn you that according to some recent news articles, you are watching a show hosted by a hateful bigot, and that was about the nicest things that was said about me. And the quote, the host of Huckabee explained that during his interview with Christian Post, he was asked to identify what he believed is the biggest threat facing culture. Quote again, so I replied that I thought it was the abandonment of the biblical standards of family, the view that there is no such thing as maleness or femaleness anymore, and that marriage doesn't really matter, that divorce is no big deal, and that any form of marriage is equally valid, not just between male and a female, he said. Also, continue quoting here, I also said that it's fathers don't seem to be that important to the development of a child, that gender is fluid, and that we can just choose a gender based on how we feel rather than how we were created, and that the Bible is some old book that no longer represent our changing culture. End of quote. So the former Southern Baptist pastor said that since the Christian Post article went live, virtually every left-wing publication in the country has blasted him for homophobic and anti-LGBTQ hate, including Huffington Post, White Wing Watch, Pink News, and others. Pink News. When I read that, I thought it was interesting. But Huckabee pointed out that he never specifically mentioned the LGBT community in his interview. Quote, my main point was that the reason for so much culture confusion and moral decadence was the Christian church. Too many modern churches have decided to preach a gospel that just doesn't offend anyone by basically saying, just do whatever you feel about, whatever you feel about, I don't know about what. And so we have ignored or maybe dismissed biblical standards so that we can be modern, relevant, in touch, hip, and relatable. End of quote. The host of the number one, so I didn't know this was new when I read this, the host of the number one program on TBN clarify that while he doesn't believe God wants his people to be obnoxious, judgmental, hateful, or self-righteous, Christian must challenge our culture to tune itself to God's truth rather than to demand that God tune himself to my truth and our culture. Before playing an instrument, every musician must tune their instrument to a fixed absolute note on a musical scale or chaos and noise will result, he explained. I want to be very clear. I don't hate anybody. I really don't, he said. But I refuse to ignore or deny God's law or natural law. That if I fail to tune my life to those standards, how can I hope to make music of my life. When every instrument in a band plays according to our own standard of tuning, the result is chaos and noise. The instruments are not the same in tone or volume or sound, but they do join together to make music only if they agree on the tuning device. Mike Huckabee said that while all people are free to live how they desire, they are not free to tune their lives to what they think, feel, or and believe instead of a standard that God has created. Otherwise, Otherwise, you'll end up with a result that is anything but beautiful, he said. Now, if that makes me a hateful bigot, then it's because those who label me that are tuned to a different standard. So, with no apology, I do my best to tune my life and belief to God unchanging standard rather than to ask Him if He could rewrite the Bible and tune His standard to me, he concluded. In his interview with Christian Post, Huckabee argued that the gender dysphoria we are seeing today is largely due to the fact that church has failed to present a very clear word of Jesus and Genesis 5:2, male and female he them created he them. There are some people who are in single parenthood not because they want to be, but because they were forced to be. And we ought to give them all the support, he clarifies, but we should never pretend that it is as good as loving mother and father in a home where a child sees both gender plays out their norm, because that modeling of behavior that would be ideal for a child to grow up in. The church, he contend, need to clearly present biblical view of gender and identity, even though it's not considered politically correct. And I think last paragraph here, people are afraid that if they are really biblical, it will alienate people, and I think that's nonsense, he said. Yes, it will alienate some people who are more interested in preserving the lifestyle they have chosen than a lifestyle that will be practical and will work, but it will also be a lifesaver for the people who are really looking for genuine truth. So that's the article there from Christian Post. And that, as I was dealing with this thought here, I said I'm going to use this article as an example of this is a conservative ex-pastor, a person that used to be pastor, who is putting forward this type of material. The material on the surface, I would agree with. I believe that a lot of the confusion coming on in society and the hurt to the society, as it was to the Roman Empire when it fell and was taken over by the Catholic Church, who would seem conservative, was homosexuality and gender dysphoria. Just said gender dysphoria, confused about if their gender and attracted to the same sex and all that, was part of the characteristic of the fall of a nation. The men became in love with men and women in love with women, and that was one of the problems with Rome. Even Paul stated it very clearly in Romans chapter 1. But Romans chapter 1 is where Paul started, and then Paul went through many other chapters dealing with other issues. So the problem is not this type of statement, as I say, liberals have a point of view, conservative have a point of view. But as my topic is, it's very important that we stay away from what I call one-sided liberal or conservative ideology. Because one could say, that's my stance. This is the thing that's taking America down. And you preach that all day long. You say abortion and sexual orientation or sexual choices, this is what's taking America down. And you look at this and you say, yeah, that's a major problem. That's what the Bible had, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. But if you look at that and you look at the Bible, with all the 60-something books, 66 books in the Bible, how many times you see the Bible authors spend so much time talking about gender dysphoria, homosexuality is not replete through the Bible, but it's there, and it's there in very clear language, unlike what the homosexuals claim and the female pastors claim. It's very clear, both in the Old and New Testament. But it is the Bible is not consumed. The Bible authors are not consumed with this thought. The Bible authors more consumed with bigotry, more consumed with hate for the poor, for the fatherless, for the widow. The God of the Bible is more concerned with hate and oppression of the strangers. And so this is why it's important not to get caught up into the good talk, because if you listen to that, you'll be like, yeah, I'm for that. I'm for it. I don't believe in all this confusion. And you pull back and say, but wait a minute. So this is what's destroying America? I could say this is one of the things I could take off on the list, but I wouldn't say this is the main thing. I know when I go to the Bible and read my Bible, yeah, it's there clearly. The Bible is very clear from day one. The two institutions that need to be honored, very clear in the Bible, is the Sabbath and the worship of God, the true God, and marriage between man and a female. Very clear. And you look at God's wrathful destruction came upon the Sodomites and so forth. But you look at most of the time Israel was destroyed. It wasn't for sodomy. It wasn't for homosexuality. It wasn't for gay sex and all that. It was for the wickedness that was done to those that were oppressed, those that were strangers, those that were fatherless, those that was less fortunate. This is the bigger destruction came for those reasons. It was the shedding of innocent blood. So you could spend all day long, and if I say, tell me the top 10 things that is caused the destruction of Israel multiple times, 3 times, or I should say two where they're taken by the Assyrians, they're taken by the Babylonians, they're taken by the Romans, they're taken, and so forth and so on. What do you say? You say it was homosexuality? Nah, it was homosexuality. What the conservative did in the time of Christ to end their reign was they murdered an innocent man, which is our Lord Christ Jesus. That's the bigger issue. And so when you look at what's been going on, it's not so much that these things are not important, is, as you know, what fanaticism, as he says, you're going to fall off to the left or to the right. And you don't want to be a drunken soldier or a drunken horseman. You want to stay on the horse. You're going to keep riding the horse to glory. But when you follow this type of stuff, you're like, yeah, he's looking out for marriage. And then you pull back and say, wait a minute. Huckabee, where have I heard that name before? Huckabee. And you say, oh, Sarah Huckabee. And you be like, wait a minute. What does she represent? She represents the spokesperson for the man that is locking up kids and separating families. But I thought her father says that we need to protect the families. And you say, oh, you see, you can't side with these people. Because what is taking on America is all the things I just said. But we're not talking about that because Huckabee and his daughter represent the side of America that is doing everything the majority of what the Bible is concerned with. The oppression of the poor, the beating up of the strangers, the warmongering, the killing of the innocent, all of that stuff. That's what they're for. But they're not for homosexuality and abortion. So they're righteous. But if you look at the Bible, it's against all wickedness. Whether it be the liberals over there in California who want to just abuse themselves and abuse kids, abuse themselves amongst themselves and abuse kids and all that. God's not for that. See, so when Obama was in power, that section of our society, the Sadducees, they reigned supreme. And they were going to sue everybody that had a biblical stance, especially on marriage. But now these guys come back in power, and now if you're a stranger and you're a minority and everything like that, they gonna make sure that you feel the hate. So that stuff about the homosexuality, that's the tip of the iceberg. And if you ask, so what's taking in America? Is it the war, the constant wars? Is it the constant hate for the poor? Is it the oppression of the poor? And they tell you, oh no, it's the homosexuals. We don't care about none of those things because we're doing it, and that's the problem. So I'll read some things out of the article again, and then I'm gonna go to some Bible, and that's why I say you gotta maintain your independence from these two sides, because these two sides, they're both deplorables. That's why Hillary Clinton I call the conservative haters. But at the end of the day, they're both they're both promoters of things that are immoral and not against God. Notice is a despised, dubbed, hateful, and bigoted, and mean-spirited conservative by left-leaning websites. Mike Huckabee has said he will not apologize for identifying the redefining of gender and sexual identity as the greatest threat to the moral fiber of America. So it is not racism. It is not separating people who are traveling over 2,000 miles from gangs and violence and trying to get some freedom and get a job and trying to live free. It is not oppressing those people that is the moral fiber that is destroying America. It is not the war on drugs that had seek for years, for decades, to oppress the black community and to lock them up in prison while whites were using drugs at the same rate as blacks. More, as a matter of fact, according to the CDC, 2 to 2 point something time more, but yet blacks were being locked up or sailed. It's not the change in conservative America and America on a whole that said now we need to legalize marijuana because so much of our conservative kids are using marijuana. We can't be locking them up or say we need to have diversion program. But when the war on crack was going on, and blacks were not only dying wholesale, but the whole community was destroyed, we had nothing to say. This is not what destroying America, he says. What destroying America is the what is it? The identifying, the redefining of gender and sexuality as the greatest threat to the moral fiber of America. See, America wasn't rotting at the head when we paid reporters, paid police to make sure that we destroy the black community after they got civil rights. This is not what was destroying the moral fiber, because the moral fiber of the DEA agents and the police and the state police, the local police and the state police, who were told to target one group of people while ignoring another group of people. This is not the moral, that this didn't destroy the moral fiber of your police departments. So this is the problem when you lean left or you lean right, because you can't independently pull back and say, wait a minute here. This was not destroying the moral fiber. Using black drug dealers to sell drugs, crack to the local black community, then using the money from that to support the Iran-Contra affair business and the Contras in Central America to fight against their government. This was not going to destroy the moral fiber, because you see, human beings have to carry out these things. And by making your other fellow human being oppressors to your fellow human being, that to me what took out the moral fiber of America. And now what we have, a drug epidemic all across America, in the rich community, in the poor community, in the urban areas, which is synonymous often with black communities, but in the urban areas and also the rural areas, because the moral fibers was destroyed by oppression of the poor, using one group of strangers and immigrants to displace another group of citizens who were brought here by slavery. That's what is one of the things, not the only thing, that is destroying the moral fiber. But you just can't say it's just abortion and, anything to do with sex. That's the only thing that destroyed the fiber of a nation. If you say that, Mike Huckabee, as I say, he's part of the Southern Baptist. It's the most racist and oppressive church in the United States, an organization, I think, in the United States, from what I've looked at. But he's not going to say no. It was not slavery or Jim Crow law or the war on drugs that destroyed the fiber of a moral fiber. It's just the homosexuality. It's two men abusing each other. That's the only thing. But it's part of it, but it's not the only thing. And then when you find out that the conservative, they're abusing themselves amongst themselves, then you find out, wait a minute, I thought it was always the liberal. So you can't follow this. I wouldn't trust even a liberal when it comes on to not oppressing the poor, because you go into the areas where the liberals control. Are the poor people doing better? No, they're not. or minorities doing better. No, they're not. You can't trust it because both sides need to find Jesus. And that's why you maintain your independence, because both sides is immoral and sick and they need salvation. But, it's easy for someone like Huckabee to say, look, I follow the Bible. I'm against gender dysphoria. And you say, hey, Mike, but your daughter's over there promoting all kind of separation of families and oppression of poor people, and she's the spokesperson for warmongering and all that type of stuff. Oh, well, we don't follow that part of the Bible. We ignore it. We don't even read those texts. Notice here again in the article, it said too many modern churches have decided to preach a gospel that just doesn't offend anyone by basically saying, just do whatever you feel about. And so we have ignored and maybe dismissed biblical standards so that we can be modern, relevant, in touch, hip, and relatable. Well, that is true for liberal churches. We go to liberal churches. But remember, Christ says, when you go to liberal churches, this is enshrined. I think they should just go in with a flag, make a flag that say, we dismiss biblical standard. Because that's what a liberal is. Think about it. You deal with Christ and he's dealing with the Sadducees. Sadducees just reject anything to do with miracles, the power of God. They just anything goes. There's the Sadducees. And they melt away. They disappear. They couldn't care less. Christ is there going back and forth with the Pharisees. They're like, man, we out to here. We're going to go sodomize somebody. That's the Pharisees. We're going to go fornicate with somebody. Sadducees don't care about these things. You understand that? That's easy. The trick with conservatives or the Pharisees is that they claim the Bible and they claim they have standards. But they're hypocrites. And they're sick in the head, as you read Matthew chapter 23. And when you get that, you start to see how powerful this is. Why? Because notice it says, too many modern churches have decided to preach a gospel that just doesn't offend anyone. But he will not say, if I'm in a Southern Baptist church, I won't preach a gospel that will offend people who hate their brother. As a matter of fact, they claim they're not even brother because they're the different skin color. They're different skin color. Think about that. So it's easy to pick the beam out of a person that's writing a newspaper, which I'm going to have to check out later. I never ever heard about that. Pink news. And then it's led up by a guy who is flowery and, and just effeminate. And you're like, pink news. Oh, they're sick over there. So it's easy to say, oh yeah, we preach against pink news, right? But we don't talk about the things that we're doing. We don't talk about how we cage up these people into ghettos and keep them there. We're not going to talk about that. So it's easy to say some church just preach a gospel that does not offend anyone. He's not going to hurt. He's not going to offend any of those people, because what Michael Huckabee say, it would be done. It would not be the number one program, which I just found out after I read this article when I first read it. It would not be the number one program on TBN if he ever would speak up against any of the wickedness that's going on outside of gender dysphoria. He would lose his ratings. And that's the point. You can avoid certain topic. See, if I go to a liberal station, if I go on liberal media, I don't touch certain topic. Because why? I know I'm going to offend them. But I can hit the conservative. You see, a liberal will love me talking about this type of stuff. But they're not going to want me to talk about this kind of gender dysphoria. And that, these women should stop sleeping with their sons and stuff like that. And confusing their sons. And don't dress their son a certain way. And go find a guy in the community or in the church to mentor their son. They don't like that. Because they want to say every homosexual is born that way. They don't want to say many of them were mentored by a female to be a female. Because there's always female always want a guy to be what they think a guy should be. They don't want a guy to be a guy. They want a guy to be a dear version of a guy. And they can't get it from their husband. And a lot of times the husband walk out of there. And then they say, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create my son to be like the homosexuals I want my husband to be. And he didn't want to fall in line. That's just the reality. But if I say that, oh man, not a lot of women, number one, be up in arms, and liberals be like, forget about that. I'm done with you. And that's how you keep your ratings low. So notice here, it doesn't offend anyone. Just do whatever you feel about. That's interesting the way you say that. And so we have ignored or maybe dismissed biblical standard so that we can be modern, relevant, in touch, hip, and relatable. But that's true in a conservative environment. I've been most of my time in my adult life in a conservative environment. And it is true in a conservative environment. They want to be modern in their way, relevant, in touch, hip, and relatable. It's just a different way. It's a different way. If you have a bunch of rabid nationalists, let's say it that way, you have to be rabid nationalists, and you be relatable to them, and see things their way, and in touch with their whatever they're in touch with, and be hip in whatever they're hip with. Because that's how you have to see it. You have to maintain, as I say, maintain a one-sided ideology. And it's the same thing if you go into a liberal church, you have to maintain a one-sided liberal ideology. You have to say we have to be inclusive, we have to be this, and we have to be that. And that's what you have to do. But you could say, oh no, it's just them over there. But he's in touch with his audience. Think about it. The president, I don't know if it is his advisors, but he knows to connect with people who want to be told that we'll do everything we can to maintain you at the expense of them without ever asking you to get up and get going. And that's what unfairness is. Think about a parent being unfair to one child. The one child is going to always get the better treatment, independent of their action. And that's what nationalism, false nationalism is, or racism is. You're saying to a person, you don't have to do better. You don't have to make better cars. You can keep making your unreliable cars out of Detroit, and I'll make sure put tariffs. I'll make sure give you bailout. I'll do everything for you to make sure that you have your job and you're maintained and you are profitable at the expense of the taxpayer. And you never ever have to do right because I'm for the American people. And that in itself is the stupidest thing I've seen being carried out, and the biggest trick that is hurting the people. Because you're saying to a person, you never have to accept, you can't keep making these clunky, junky cars, but you're going to be profitable. And somebody say, how? Oh, we're going to hit those people with heavier taxes to make their car price goes up. And then also what we're going to do, we're going to give you a bailout. We're going to take the taxpayer dollars and then we're going to give it to you. And then we're going to say the country is indebted. It's stupid. This is I don't even call it racism, I just call it stupidity. And this is what they're doing. But Huckabee is going to say, oh no, this is not destroying the fabric of America. This is not, ignore that noise. That's noise. Don't listen to that. The problem in America is the homosexuals. It's one of the problems. But Huckabee's not going to, because Huckabee's talking to his audience, and his audience don't want to hear that you guys not producing what you are supposed to produce. You guys need to do what you need to do. They're never going to hear that. Because what they want to hear, every time you look in the news, you see all these rapists. But then they say, oh no, the rapists are from Mexico. I was saying all these white women being raped and doing Me Too, they've been raped by Mexicans. Oh yeah, they're bad people. And they come to take your jobs. Vote for me. And Huckabee say, me and my daughter will promote this. We believe in this. And the moral fabric of America is being destroyed by Mexicans and by the Sodomites. You see, it's twisted. And this is why I say you have to avoid in the church. And in the church is the same thing. You have the liberals over there, party, fun. Music and more music. Idiot talk preaching. Nothing. They won't preach the doctrines of the church. They won't preach any Bible. It's just, they seem to be preaching Bible, but it's just entertainment. And you look at it, you say, I can't be part of that. But in society, in church, they force you to that. You must choose. They come over to the conservative. They're like, we into the Bible, but we don't like you. We don't like your kind around here because we conservative. They'd be like, I can't be part of it. But I have no choice. I can't be a part. They don't even want me to be part of that. At least the liberals, they want me to come and sing with them. But the conservatives are like, we don't come around. And none of this is right. And don't be fooled by it. Don't be fooled by people like Huckabee. You can't choose. Christ did not choose the Pharisees or the Sadducees. Don't get roped into that. All right? Don't get doped into that. Because you'll be a dope if you get fooled by that type of stuff. But we preach the Bible. They don't hold. Listen, the biblical standards. As I say, you look at the Bible, and I challenge anyone on this. From a lowly person that just joined a church to a double PhD in theology. I challenge somebody to show me where in the Bible that the focal point is on what they making the focal point. And I'll show you in the Bible, the focal point of the Bible is you take care of those who are less fortunate. The murderers of Christ were the ones because Christ was a poor man. Christ was not the big shot. And they make sure they join up with the Romans, the Italians, and murdered Christ. And it was the Pharisees, the conservative, the Hackabees of this world. And you can see that's the problem. That's why you can't hold to the left or to the right. Because you think the Pharisees opened their mouth and protest? They did not protest. The Pharisees of this world, they never protest when Christ was being murdered. Because guess what happened? They disliked him too. Both sides hated him because he wasn't for their sodomite ways and he wasn't for their racist, evil, conservative ways. And you got to know this. And somebody hear this and say, well, I can't be with you. Great. No problem with that. You make your choice. And remember, your choice is eternal. So yes, the Bible is pro-female and male being in a house together. But the Bible is pro a lot of other things. And as I said, God is not partial, but we have made racism become a national stain. But yet these people can't see how it's damaging the society. So remember, when we're talking about false doctrine in the church, we normally focus on doctrines, the Sabbath, baptism, these are the things that we make become focal. But we forget that the Bible main emphasis was, when Christ talked to Nebuchadnezzar, what he says, it says, shake off your sin by showing mercy to the poor. He didn't say, hey, you need to fix the society by dealing with the homosexuals. That's a given. He says, shake off your sin by showing mercy to the poor. And that if you do this, God might extend your reign. This is what needs to happen. Where have we heard one talk about showing mercy to the poor? All we hear and talk is this hateful talk about people. And, to me, as I said, if you want to build a wall, build a wall. If you want to destroy the whole healthcare system, go ahead and do whatever you can. But with all that hate is the problem. It's the talk of hate to me is my issue. If you're going to do something, just go ahead and do it and let's see what's going to happen because I want to see some of these experiments run. As I say, they should build 3 layers of walls. So each layer become more dangerous. So it's almost like this is a nice wall. If you climb over it, then this is a third wall. We're going to do it like in, West Germany. You climb over these barbed wires, and if you climb over that, we're going to shoot you. And I would be like, it's your prerogative. Build it. Do it. Stop everybody from coming in. Because we want to see that when you stop all South Americans from coming in, if rape drop, if the drug epidemic drop, if the financial free fall that the society is going in drop. It's important to see this because the blame right now is on brown-skinned people. But Michael Huckabee is not going to talk about that. So that's unfair. That's not what's going on. I'm saying it's unfair, but they're saying, no, this is what's taken out. You listen to these rabid people, they're like, oh yeah, America's been destroyed by these people. So I'd like to see that experiment run. And while they're at it, if they want to just deport and send back to Africa all the brown-skinned people, just go ahead and do it. Some people are going to get caught in mix because they need a brown or white. But it's interesting. This is the type of hate that is not right. And while they keep spouting all that hate, what end up happening? Things is not getting better because they're trying to, just like what they did in the 80s, they tried to arrest all the black guys and send them to prison for using drugs. It never made America better. They were trying to arrest their way out of criminality. And the mass murders, the Jeffrey Dahmers didn't stop eating people. Now what they're trying to do, they try to deport their way, and that's going to make America great. Not going to work. I put my everything on it. Not gonna work. Matthew chapter 7 verse 13. Matthew chapter 7 verse 13 onwards say, enter ye into the straight gate, or enter ye in at the straight gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. So if you follow the liberals, you're in the broad way. If you follow the conservative, you're in the broad way. It just depends on what part of America you're at. If you're in California, you're with the liberals for the most part. A higher percentage. If you're over here in the West Coast, East Coast, same thing. East Coast, West Coast. You're in the center of the country, south of the country. You join with the Broadway and the conservative. But you would never hear a conservative say that, would you? They wouldn't say that if you're in Tennessee, the broad road is the conservative road. You wouldn't hear that. But it's the same thing. Because again, as I say, you ignore biblical standards and you only focus on certain things. Just like when you were the liberal said, Jesus forgive. Jesus said doesn't judge. This is the liberal. You've heard him. You don't even talk about him. It's so silly. Oh, Jesus doesn't judge. Jesus was a bro. Jesus was with the poor and everything like that. But they forget everything as Christ say. So you should look at another woman. That if he was in Sodom, Sodom would have repented with sackcloth and ashes. You can imagine all those what you call these, the fruity men, and they would, in their pink and all that, and they would like get on sackcloth and ashes and start pour them themselves if they heard Christ preach. That's what Christ said. But they don't hear that because they're not into the Bible, so they never read that. Notice here verse 14, but straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. As I say, this is the world, left and right. You ain't gonna find a narrow way, because a narrow way would make them, you can't join with a liberal. You can't be a Christian and join with a conservative. You're crazy if you believe that. I'll be crazy if I believe that. You believe these people, all they talk about is abortion and what is the other thing? And the LGBT. And they would turn face and walk away and go oppress some poor person and treat people like they're less than because they're not the same skin color. And you join with those people, you're crazy if you believe that's going to salvation. Notice verse 15. Beware of false prophets will come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Who you have to be careful of? The one that comes in sheep clothing. Not the one that comes and you're thinking, how can a pastor dress in pink? And all his floral clothes. No, it's the one that comes to you and you think, man, they're for the Bible. They talk about biblical standards. They're the trickiest ones. Verse 16, ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorn or figs of thistle? Even so, every good tree which bringeth forth good fruit. But even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruits. But a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. It is by the fruit of the life. You see, it's one thing to hear somebody say biblical standard. It's another thing to get to know them personally. And as I say, after years of being around conservative and liberals too, but conservative, both, I say, I see the trick is that sheep clothing trick. They're pulling that sheep clothing because they like biblical standard. We're for the Bible. We're against certain things. And then you see them and you start to realize, wait a minute, these people are sick. But their sickness is hidden by their sheep clothing. But then what Christ says is, I'm going to tell you how to know. It's watch the fruit of their life. Watch how they live. Watch their lifestyle choices. It's all talk. You watch them when they say they're going to pay their girlfriend to abort the child because they don't want the wife to know. And you say, wait a minute, I thought you were anti-abortion. Yeah, as long as I didn't get my girlfriend pregnant, I'm anti-abortion. But the moment I get my girlfriend pregnant, I'm for abortion. It has its use. You see, this is the sickness. And you see to be like, they for. Think about it. Who is the biggest promoter of democracy? But you go around them and let them lose in a situation, and they see that they're losing, and you'll find out how quickly they're anti-democracy. Because they'll be like, no, we can't allow a vote because we can't lose. And then you say, oh, well, a human. That's why I enjoy. I say, Phariseeism is humanism. It's a person that is religious, but is still secular. And what it is that their philosophy is they're trying to hold to the Bible, but they were never converted. They're not willing to sacrifice anything for truth. And so they always want to protect themselves. Because remember, it was the Pharisees. See, this is what is a lot of time what people call even racism. It's not racism, it's self-protection. So the Pharisees saw that Christ was getting too powerful, and they said, we have to kill him. We have to stop him. Their motivation was self-preservation. Because they say, if he gets bigger, we lose our job. Because there's nothing in his preaching that would allow us to keep our job. Because the people believe him, they would say, you guys are done. You're fired. That's the problem. So they're defending themselves, but not by doing right. And if anything I say, that to me is one of the key understand where you understand the mindset of people who are in these liberal conservative bastions. It's self-preservation. They want to preserve their way of life, the way they do business and all that. So when you understand that, you go deal with a conservative, his focal point is everybody sees that is not self. He sees as an enemy and is willing to beat up. Even though the Bible, Christ said to him, treat the brother as a brother. They're like, we can't do it. Because we see him as an enemy. We are afraid that he might take our position. So we got to do wrong to him. Can't do him nice. And that's the holdback. The holdback, you'll be like, yeah, somebody need to pick the tomatoes, but man, they might get cocky and they might not just want to pick the tomato, they might want to pick my wife or my daughter. I don't want them to pick my daughter, and I stop him at the border. I'm worried about this thing happening. I might get wiped out. Notice here, James 1 verse 8, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Can't make up his mind if he's serving Jesus or not. So I'm going to say, you mean all his ways. And this is why you can see a person is liberal and they act conservative. You can see a conservative act liberal. You got to make up your mind. You're not either side. You're for Jesus. And when you do that, your life is just so, oh man, I can just live free. I don't have to be stuck in any of these ideologies with these crazy people. Matthew 12 verse 35 through 33 through 35 says, either make the tree good and the fruit good, or else make the tree corrupt and the fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by its fruit. O generation of vipers, all of them, Pharisees and conservatives, Pharisees and liberals, or Sadducees and liberals, or whatever, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. A good man out of the good treasure of his heart bringeth forth good things, and an evil man out of the evil treasure bringeth forth evil things. Can't do it. And this is one of the principles I had to accept. I understand what the Bible was saying, but it took me a while to accept it. It's one thing to know what the Bible is saying, it's another thing to accept it. I had to accept that no matter who is in front of me, liberal or conservative, white or black, rich or poor, free or bond, I'm just going with the text. Whoever is in front of me, I had to realize no matter what they say, as long I have to watch what they do, and ultimately what comes out of their mouth. Not the idea, because people will like, I profess this, yeah, but their action is opposite. I had to watch that, because their lifestyle, most of the people, almost everybody I ever met that they said they're liberal, they're conservative. They always had a liberal ideology because they're still human, they're still unconverted. They're no different from the liberal who just embrace the secularism. They hide their secularism by saying they profess to be this way. And you say, oh yeah, no, they're conservative and they're for America. And then you say, but what are you doing with a brown-skinned wife? Y'all crazy. Y'all confusing me. I can't follow you all. That's why you can't follow, because they're humanity. They're just secular, but they just have they profess some conservative or liberal ideology. These people are crazy. You can't follow them. You have to just say, look, avoid maintaining, as I say, one-sided ideology, whether it be liberal or conservative. You choose by topic and by issue. You take issues by issue. You say, where do I land on this issue? Where does the Bible tell me I should land? And you do it that way. You can't take a platform. You can't take a liberal platform or a conservative platform, because both of the platform, It's confusing. You have to take issues by issue. Whatever the Bible says, you go by that. You don't follow no liberal agenda or no conservative agenda. These people are Babylonians. They'll confuse you to the hilt. Let's pray. Our Father who art in heaven, we thank you for clarity. We thank you for, dear Lord, making us not be double-minded, that we can be consistent in what we do, loving all men, treating all men with fairness, and holding to your biblical standard. May you bless us, we pray, for Christ's sake. Amen. Thanks for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again tomorrow morning, where we should talk about natural health. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.